Prescott Art Docents presents Monday Morning Program, produced in the Prescott Center for the Arts Theater, 208 North Marina Street, Prescott, Arizona. Our doors are always open every Monday morning for our 10:30 program. Come on in and join us to enjoy today's program with us.
Okay, without any further ado, Dan, are you introducing Judy? You got it.
As I always like to say, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. It is my privilege to introduce Judy York today. Judy York was born in Prescott in the fourth generation of her family to live in Prescott. She attended Lincoln School, Prescott Junior High, and graduated PHS in 1967. Judy attended the University of Arizona, receiving a degree in elementary education, and returned to Prescott to teach first grade in Washington School. That's where her mother and grandmother had also attended. Her family operated the Crawford and York auto business until 2011. She now operates the Ballantine building in downtown Prescott and has two children working in the same building. Last year, Judy hosted two gatherings of Prescott's senior residents entitled Old Guys Rule. The first was held in the Prescott City Hall chamber where our own Bruce Fee, as you can see on the screen, was a participant. Judy was the master of ceremonies and quizzed all 12 participants about their life growing up in Prescott. All the participants were then allowed to talk about themselves and discuss the old times with the other participants. It was an informative and joyous time for all. The second gathering of Old Guys Rule was held in the American Lutheran Evangelical Church on Scott Drive. Judy was again the master of ceremonies and quizzed all 8 participants about their life growing up in Prescott. All the participants given time to talk about themselves and discuss the old times with other participants. That gathering was also informative and a joyous time for all. Both Old Guys Rule events were filmed by the Prescott Police Department Media Productions crew, of which I am a member. The films went through a series of editing, and DVDs were then produced. A 2-disc DVD set was the result for each Old Guys Rule event. Judy has graciously donated a copy of both 2-disc DVD sets to our group, the Prescott Art Docents. Ladies and gentlemen, let's thank Judy. And welcome Judy York with your generous applause.
Okay, are we hearing me? It's usually a matter of you have to tell me to speak less loud because I get real excited. This is so exciting to me to share Prescott, and basically it's my version of Prescott, and I tried to make my family part of it as minimal as possible. We have today in our presence Mr. John Olson. John Olson was married to Ann Olson, the only female in a barrage of what is the Savoini-Fanara clan. And John was just real informative. This show may still be on Access TV. Both of the Old Guys Rule 1 and 2 will come back onto Access TV, and I can let Marcia know and she can let your group know because it's wonderful. Feel free to check those out, right, Dan, from this group. And it's each Old Guys Rule 1 is 2 hours and 2 is 2 hours, so it's a long, so wonderful you can't even believe. They talk about the war. Walt Minucci stormed the beaches of Normandy. I mean, they're just amazing stories of Prescott, and I don't let anybody do this that's under 80 because they're too young. Okay, so I got to get my hands right. Prescott has always been my favorite place to grow up. I think I'm going backwards. So I'll just kind of speed through these, and then at the end you can ask all the questions you want. Imagine if we had saved that trail through Granite Dells that was the Whipple stage. Wouldn't that have been fabulous? I think it became the train track. Oh, I went the wrong way, sorry. The Butte, of course, we all know so well and love. The Plaza Stables later became the Ruffner Stables. Have we heard of the name Ruffner in Prescott, Arizona? This is the first train in 1887 coming into Prescott, the first passenger train, I think. But maybe it's just the first train, and I will tell you later about the last train in Prescott. The depot, this is an early, see the horse and buggy days? And it was a wonderful structure, and it still is. Let's be sure I have my little bopper thingy here. There we go. Okay. The Kirkland Hotel down in Kirkland, Arizona. When we were in high school, we'd go to something called the Kirkland Stomp on Saturday night. I should not say we because I really didn't do that. I was too young. But now it's still open and operating, and I love Kirkland. My family started with Charles Riebling in 1903. He was the first Republican elected in Yavapai County, but it was like 28 years after Yavapai became a county, which makes me laugh. He was my paternal great-grandfather, and he lived in this beautiful house on Summit Street next to the Methodist Church, if you know downtown, which later became the Willow Creek Inn, and it's still a lovely home. The stories about the ghost in the attic are not true. The stories about... And then my dad's grandfather, Crawford, came to Prescott in 1907. This is his father's family. And Mr. Crawford came to run the Prescott Sanitary Laundry, which was later American Laundry, Sites Office Products downtown on Montezuma Street, and now it's like B&L floor covering maybe. And they lived in this house. My grandfather was raised in this house, and then he raised my father in this house on Park Avenue. If any of you know Forrest Backus and Shirley Backus, it's their daughter Kathy, who was in Lincoln School with me, who owns this house and has it now, so we've played there some. This is my grandfather. His name was Bumps. And he was bumps in the Arizona State Legislature. He was bumps to everyone. And Ina Riebling Crawford. Whoops, I missed his office. He was a lawyer here in the Crawford and Baker office. It was Favor and Baker at one time, and he came in. This is the corner of Gurley and Cortez. Whoops, I'm getting used to this. And this is my mother's parents, Susie and Johnny Russell, came here in 1935 after he was building the Boulder Dam, which became the Hoover Dam. And they lived in this precious little house on Arizona Avenue, and it's now owned by Sandy Moss and Mike Shepard, and they put it out on Thumb Butte Road, and it is a dollhouse. I'm so glad. You know, it's like the house was dead, and now it's alive again. And this is part of the gas station. My parents are Al and Colleen Crawford. They had 3 girls, Jackie, Jill, and Judy. I don't know if you remember Hallie's Young World, Mary. I can't, thank you, Mary Brosson. She said to me one day when I brought my children into Hallie's Young World, well, I can't believe your mother handled you girls as triplets. And I said, well, we're not triplets. And she said to me, of course you are. Where do you go with that? I came home in 1949 to the Quonset huts that were at the end of Cortez Street in those days. They tell me they moved later to like where the YMCA is now. But in my day, it was there. And that my dad worked for Roxy Webb, always drove Fords. And this is the little cracker box house that we built out off of Copper Basin on Linden Road. And I moved in there the first year of my life. And then this is the start, my earliest pictures of downtown. This is Gurley Street going west. Is that hilarious? And this is the original. It's wood, the wooden structure that was St. Michael Hotel. And then I'll talk to you a lot about the building on the corner that's now called the Ballantyne Building, and I'll tell you why. Oh, I can't do this right. This is another picture. Look at the gutter going down there to take the water. This is actually a different picture of the St. Michael Hotel. So I don't know if they refaced it or just painted it. This is the whole, you know, Bashford Court block and stuff. Back again I go. This is 1900 when downtown Prescott burned to the ground. And it's interesting because I own the building, the Ballantyne Building on the corner, and I have burned things in my building, but there was never a fire there. So my friend Bill Travis, he's so wonderful. I believe he's about 92. He said that his father's first job at age 13 was to take all these bricks and all the tin ceilings and those beautiful pieces of architecture and pop the cement off of them so they could reuse them in all the new buildings. And I never knew that. If you go to El Charro, in the cantina side of El Charro restaurant, you'll see some black bricks that show the evidence of this. And I was so happy to learn that piece of information. Another piece of the Whiskey Row, you've heard the story of them dragging the back bar out of the palace and putting it on the square and then dragging it back in. You can see a desk there. So this is 1900s when Prescott started going brick and mortar. Almost all of downtown Prescott. See how the Gurley Street 100 block is all new buildings and refurbished, and we had a new courthouse. This is in the 1800s. I'm going to jump forward and back a lot because of I put things in groups. So this is 1907, excuse me, in the early 1900s on Whiskey Row. Now here's the new St. Michael Hotel. This is now the Ballantyne Building, used to be called the Wilson Block. This is the Brinkmeyer, what used to be Brinkmeyer Bakery. I don't know that this is the gazebo we currently have. I thought they redid the gazebo when they redid the courthouse. This is looking down Union Street at that beautiful little courthouse, and you can see the rebuilding going on of the structures on Whiskey Row. I had wondered if they had kept the old courthouse and kind of like, you know, added on to it. They did not. And then we have this beautiful structure in the 40s. And then this is later how we have it today. This was the first school called Prescott Free Academy. And it was the only school they had in Prescott at the time. And I'll show you where it was. This is Washington School on Gurley Street. It's just being shut down as a school. I used to teach in the basement there under the stairs. So they took down Free Academy to make way for this beautiful structure, Washington School. This is what I lovingly refer to. Do not be offended when I call it Stinkin' Lincoln, because I love Lincoln School. And my dad went to Lincoln School. My sisters and I all went to Lincoln School. My grandmother taught at Lincoln School in the late 20s, and now my grandkids are there. So I'm thrilled with Lincoln School, trust me. And Washington School, my mom went to Washington School. No, my grandmother went there in 2003 when her family first came to Prescott, the Rieblings. And then my mom went to Washington School, and then I taught in that little room right there under the stairs. So I love the family history. This is St. Joe's Academy, and I'll show you a lot of pictures of St. Joseph's. It's actually a boarding school. So some students came in from the outer county to go to school here and live. It's on the spot that's now the church, the Catholic Church, Sacred Heart. The new Sacred Heart. This is Miller Valley, and quite tragically is going to be sold, and kids moved around. And then this is Jefferson School, and it operated in the 40s for not a very long time. And then I say 1948, but it was opened as a hospital sooner than that. Sooner than that. We were wondering where, and we've been told stories you'll see on Old Guys Rule. They talk about birthing houses, and ladies had babies in their homes and stuff like that until this hospital got up and rolling. I was actually born here. Were you born here, Helen? This is the old City Hall of 1900 that later became Prescott High School in 1911. My grandparents graduated from this high school, and it's now the county building, Gurley, between Alarcon and Marina. It's right over there. This is my grandparents' graduating class. This little 5-foot-tall Ina Riebling was was captain of the basketball team in high school. And then her great-great-granddaughter was playing basketball at Prescott High School. It cracked me up. She's tall. Here's Bumps Crawford, and here's his brother Chester, and this is what they did. You would know so many of these names if I told you the names of all these people. I just love that picture. So there's when it was Prescott High School. We went there for junior high. And then in 1941, they had started building this before America got into World War II. And it was only the 3 buildings, here, here, and here, and where we're standing taking the picture was added some years later. We lived our lives on what we called the quadrangle in the middle. So we went to high school there. Helen Marie's class ahead of me graduated there, but my class was the first to graduate. We went in '66, and the class of '67 was the first class to graduate in what we call the new high school. It's 48 years old now, the not so new high school. Okay, back to the early days. This is probably around the 20s, and they are building the streetcar line. I love this picture because look at this gentleman. Isn't he a hoot? Suppose he was mayor or God knows what. And I want you to notice this funky little house standing out in the middle of the street right there. So they laid the lines. My mom tells me the streetcar went all the way to the VA because so many people worked. It was a huge employer of people in Prescott in those days. Did not last an awful long time, but see the electric poles, how hilarious they are? Look how tall these are. Did you know when electric came to Prescott, Arizona? 1897. Did you know there was electric in 1897? I thought, you know, with the Industrial Revolution, it came after 1900, but we had electric in 97. Then here's that funky little house out in the street. And this is laying the cornerstone for the Elks Opera House. Isn't that great? There's the streetcar. It's electric. and that's why all the poles. And then another version went down. This is the head hotel on Cortez. So the other version went that way, and at some point it must have turned east to go to the VA. I just don't have knowledge of that. This is looking at Cortez Street. Look how sparse the courthouse is. Isn't that a hoot? That's looking straight ahead at the Bashford Courts. That was the Bashford Burmester building originally. I love how they've refurbished those buildings. They're so beautiful. I love this picture of downtown because there was Eagle Drug on this corner with a fountain counter, and then there was Roar Bloom Drug. Roar and Bloom were the druggists that started this down here in what is now the Ballantyne building. And they both had the soda fountains, which were wonderful. And I love this picture right here because Raymond Trengove, do you know Margie and Ray Trengove? Their dad, Raymond's dad, started this, the Coca-Cola plant. And on Granite Street, we could actually watch them being bottled and capped and everything there on. But at Christmas time, they used to do what we call in our family trick or drink, and they would come to your house and deliver you a case of Coke. So we didn't have a lot of cases of Coke in our house, so that was a real fun time. Look at the cars, aren't they just a hoot? More of Gurley Street, Prescott. But see, up here on the hill, that is St. Joseph's Academy. It stands out in so many of the pictures. You'll see that trees are getting a little bit bigger. This is 1950s, and if you know who Bill Nebeker is, the artist, his wife yells, "That's Bill Nebeker's Ford right there," and indeed it is. Piggly Wiggly, do you remember Piggly Wiggly drugs or groceries, and they had all the carts out in front with all the produce and stuff? Now this is the old Congress Hotel, and it was torn down to make way for the grand old lady. And my grandfather tells me that when they built this, I believe it's in 24, that they had a bake sale on the courthouse to help make money to open the Hacienda Hotel. Isn't that a hoot? Love it. It's been refurbished. The rooms are fabulous. I always loved the lobby and this cute little thing. And of course now they bought the old telephone company next door and have the marina room attached. This is a neat picture. It must have been upstairs in the junior high or even on the roof to take that picture. And again, there's St. Joe's standing up there like a queen. This is out where the fire station is on White Spar. And they had these on both ends of town, one over on Sheldon or West Gurley, I don't know which. And then this one over on White Spar. I'm going Iron Springs. This is the beginnings of this gorgeous, gorgeous theater that we know and love. This is, and I've seen this picture a million times. I didn't think we'd ever see those opera boxes. And if it weren't for Betty Ruffner, we probably never would have. But it's so fabulous now. I really do love it. I show this slideshow for the class reunions each year because they're coming to the Half Century Club for their 50th. And the screen is the size of the stage. It's just a hoot. Then we had the Studio Theater, do you? It was on the corner of Union Street and Cortez. And there's the most hilarious picture. Isn't that great? It's now the parking lot for the Baptist church, which makes me sad. But I said, what do we do? Climb over the seats to get into the seat in front of you? They tell me there's an aisle along the side, but I don't see it. And funky little doors that came out, and I thought, okay, you walk in there and then you climbed over. I don't think we climbed, but that cracks me up. And then they tore down the Studio Theater. It didn't last a long time, but it was owned by the same gentleman in our day, of course, as a movie house. The Carnegie Library came, and one of the ladies with John Olson in my Old Guys Rule 2, her name is Yvonne Morgan, said her family's house was on this corner when she was a girl. I'm hoping to find pictures of that soon. I was raised in the Congregational Church, which is also on Gurley Street. This is the Pioneer Home, the Arizona Pioneer Home, which is an institution. The post office came in 35. And I don't know if you've been up there, but there is a federal courthouse up there that is absolutely beautiful. Gorgeous old woods, things like that. A little more update. Now we got street lights. We're big time. We're uptown. And the Eagle Drug Store. Look at the cars. Aren't they just a hoot? Cars were big in my family. The Eagle Drug was a bus station, and then I think the Greyhound bus station, and Trailways was down in the Ballantyne building on the other corner. I think I skipped, no, I saw it. Okay, I love this picture because right there is the American Laundry truck. And Eddie Brooks' American Laundry, they delivered laundry all over town. Well, that's the laundry I showed you that was my great-grandfather's Prescott Sanitary Laundry, which brought him to Prescott, Arizona, and thus me. This I adore because this is Whiskey Row, and my grandmother's brother started this Riebling garage, and he sold Prescott schools their first school bus, a Studebaker, in 1940. And that was the beginning of my family in the auto business, which lasted for a long time. This is the bowling alley, a little 6-pin bowling alley right in the middle of Whiskey Row. Does anybody remember the bowling alley? Nobody. Oh, it was so cool. And the human hand pin setter, it was fun. Very fun. And it's hard to read the sign, but this is the Green Frog. Oh, there it is. The sign there says Green Frog. And the Green Frog is what moved the house out to Willow Creek Road that was my great-grandfather's, that's now the Willow Creek Inn. It started as the Green Frog. So the ghost stories and things like that, the ghost in the attic, are about downtown Green Frog. Anyway, I told those people to tell the truth on their menu, and they said, oh no, that's not any fun. Okay then. The old mill is next door to what was McIlvain Motors, and now it's Batterman's across from Charlotte Hall. And it was a big deal when we were growing up. More so for my parents. They were there all the time. And somebody, I think it was Bruce Fee and P.G. Rodenbat, told me an old guy's rule that they would go there for dinner every Friday night before the football games. And Jack Whitney, this precious little man right here, used to do what he called the football feed. And this happens to be my graduating class. And Wayne Howell hasn't been out of Prescott High School long, and Roger Hightower was the football coach, and Butchie Hampton's in there, Hampton Funeral Home. And he would use us cheerleaders and pom-pom girls, and we'd make the shakes and the whatevers, and then he'd feed the football team every single year. And he made burgers where he put the bun on this greasy grill and grilled the edge of the bun. It was the best food, and the most vanilla shakes in the world. Yummy, so yummy. I don't know if you know where the Pine Cone is out White Spar, but isn't that awesome? So Jack and Laura Branch started the Pine Cone Inn. Eventually they put a huge dining room over here and a large bar over there, and it was where we did everything. Every anniversary, every birthday was always done at the Pine Cone Inn. A couple of years ago, a couple of people, Patty Bell from the Arizona Jamboree opened it, and they did dancing again. And oh, what a passing of an era. Now this, not a lot of people knew of. The hill right here is where Safeway is on White Spar. And this building is now maybe House Chilson or one of those offices, but it was the roller dome when we were growing up. Wooden floor, roller skating house. It was a hoot. I don't think it was there real long, and then later everybody knows that that's Dave Hing's Food Basket. And it still had the beautiful wood floors and everything all of our lives. No, we didn't have, Safeway and things like that early on. This is the beginning of the Smoke Eye Museum, and I, as artists, I hope you know some about the Smoke Eye Museum and the fact that Smoke Eye was a really good thing. Some people think that Smoke Eye ended because the Indians were in an uproar. That's not really what happened. Nobody wanted to work this hard. That's why it ended. My dad, my grandfather were in it. They asked me, I said, are you kidding? It takes half a year. No. So this is the Smoke Eye Museum, and part of the old guy's rule too is Wally Warren. Do you know Wally Warren? He runs this, or at least runs the historical part of the Smoke Eye Museum now. the snake dance. They came out of the ground and did a haya haya. There's the haya haya. This is my dad doing the Apache hoop dance. He did the drum dance. And his trick was to run and jump on that drum. Well, it was raining and he slid right off the drum. And it jumped back on it again. This is Jackie and Jill and Judy. And you weren't allowed to, we were the background for Smoke Eye. And so you ate beans and tortillas around the fire and just made it look kind of sort of real. And some dumb trees stuck in the dirt. But you weren't allowed to smile because the lights would catch your teeth. And the Senator Drive-In was huge for us. I had a friend who used to say, you know, people don't welcome you to the new town if they say it's behind the old ice skating rink. And everybody goes, well, where was the ice skating rink? I always say to people, it's up on the hill by the drive-in. Well, they don't know where the drive-in was, so that's kind of what we do in Prescott. They tore this sign down, that's why it's so battered, and they were going to throw it away, and an old Prescottonian said, oh my gosh, it may have been Grace Palmer's son, Dave. And so they put it back up, and it's still there, and I hope it's there forever. They shut down the drive-in in the late 70s, maybe even the 80s, because that land was so valuable, and it's still a bare piece of land. I wish they'd saved the drive-in. We spent a lot of time, my parents, at Granite Dell Swimming Hole. This is called Payne Pavilion. The Payne family owned all of that property. They had slides, and when my children were small in the 70s, there's a little hole right here, and it's where the spring feeds this lake. And so they had a kiddie pool there, but man, was it cold. I mean, it was freezing. There was a tree here, you could jump out of the tree. There was a rope swing, you could swing and drop, and we're lucky we didn't get killed. Big tubes in the middle, you'd swim over to this dock. It was so beautiful and so fun. But my family spent a lot of time. My grandmother was a golfer, and my dad had clubs when he was 4. Yes, he was a spoiled person, but we lived by Hassayampa Country Club, so we were there all the time. Lived from 1 to 6 every day in the swimming pool. All of these buildings that we were promised would be treasured were torn down and turned into condos. I want those people dead. And now they're all gone. You know, they just sold it, demolished it, and left. Boo. Okay, this is the Ballantyne building, was the Wilson building, was called the Wilson Block Apartments. There was a hotel up here called the Regis Hotel, and it's now Keller Williams Real Estate, corner of Gurley and Montezuma. Are you with me? Okay, so this is what it looked like in the beginning, and that's how I knew, that pole right there is how I knew about electric in Prescott, Arizona. Then, this was built in 1900. This one was probably in 01 and 02. And it's above, there's a deli there, and Ram Enterprises Rentals is down there, but they used to have a balcony. That's what you're seeing right there, is a little terrace that you could come out, and those have been closed in. And then now I have an empty second floor, and my daughter and her family live on the 3rd floor and walk back and forth to Lincoln School every day. I love it. She's in business my son is in business down here in the old Bert LeFew sign shop, and we exposed those windows for the first time in about 50 years, and he has a real estate office down there. This was a Thanksgiving dinner they served there. There was an ice cream parlor, so I guess they did that, but it looks like every guy in town came. Isn't that a hoot? And it was originally called the Owl Drug and Candy Company, and I can only find the Hotel Regis in business for 2 years. So I don't know what they did with the upstairs. It was 94 before we exposed the upstairs and could actually see it. This was the original, where Keller Williams is now, the original Rohrbloom Drug. This is in 1955. You love the stop sign? Then they decided to modernize downtown Prescott. And at this point, the building was owned by the guy we called the judge, because there was only one judge, Jack Ogg, and my friend Bill Ballantyne, and Bobo came to work for York Motors, or my dad, Al Crawford Motors, he was there for 43 years. And we bought this building from Og and Ballantyne, and that's why it's called the Ballantyne Building. But finally, and Hallie's Young World was right down in here, and finally in '94, we were able to take that awful stuff off the front. And I think it's just quite lovely now. My children built the hike shack. My daughter runs it. My son's downstairs doing other things. And this is all sadly open, but we love it because we watch the parades up there. And we party up there and whatever. My dad's original job was with Webb Motors, but this Webb Motors is on the corner of Whiskey Row, right at Goodwin Street. I didn't ever know it was there, and then they moved over to Granite Street, just a block behind here, when my dad went to work there. My dad was Mr. Volvo. That's a little scary, if you remember Volvos. Then in 1964, he purchased the 209 North Montezuma. It's now, well, it was Summit Bank. It's kind of Bank of the Week. It's National Bank. On the corner of Sheldon and Montezuma. There's the Volvo, and this my dad drove because he thought it was a hot rod. That's my father there with Roland Williams. He bought the building from. Then we had American Motors and Jeep. Now I like to show this picture because this is the history of my family. My great-grandfather Crawford came here to the Sites building, or B&L floor covering, to do the laundry. His son, my grandfather, was right here in the corner of the bank where I showed you. His son, my father, was here in Al Crawford Motors, which later became York Motors. And then I have this building, and I have that business, and then my children are here. So we have 5 generations of our family in downtown Prescott. I like that. I love that. I really do. This is George Phippen. I'll never forget the day that he died. We were in high school, and it was a tragic loss. He died in about 61 or 2, very young. Very young, but surely you all know George Phippen and his history. This lady, Mary Franog, lived in this building. Her address was over on Copper Basin Road, but she lived in this building. She played the organ here for everything that ever occurred. She played and you sang? That's wonderful. Well, I started with her in the 3rd grade. We were born, her daughter and I, in the same neighborhood. We grew up together. Our parents were friends. When we were 14, she got 14 little girls through their Eagle Scout Award at the same time. I have never heard of that, never. And it took a lot. We thought she was a little ding, 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 ding. She was really pretty scattered in some things, but boy, was she organized to get this done. And so that, unfortunately, is me, her daughter Bonnie, and then Kathy Backus is there. She's the one that lives in my family home on Park Avenue that I showed you. It was a great growing up. We met down in the basement where you were all those years ago. So I was telling you about the last train out of Prescott. And Mary Franog put us on that last train, all the Girl Scouts. We were in junior high, and we came on the last train out of Prescott. And a car came down and picked us up in Skull Valley. So I love that piece of history, that we have that. Bill Shepard, Dorothy Shepard, was my mother's best friend from high school. They were friends for 66 years until my mother passed away. And then Shep came as a doc at the VA, and Dorothy was working there after school. Her mother wouldn't let her go to college, and so she worked at the VA, and that's where they met and fell in love. Wonderful people. This was his retirement party. He died a year later. And then he was the doc for all Prescott High School football games. He came to every home game and every away game for over 25 years. And so in the early 70s, the football field at the new high school was named for Bill Shepard, which I just love. People now don't really know who he was. Barry came here in '64 to announce he would run for president of the United States, and we were Barry girls, and we sang, "We love you, Barry." Oh, yes, we do. My dad was, this is my father, whoops, there, one of my brother-in-laws, and Jack Orr, some of you know Jack was teacher at the high school, and he was big into softball. big in softball. This is the All-Stars, so it was the best of all the players in town. And this one, where is he? Right there is Ernie Phippen. This is George's son, who very sadly died at age 32. They think that George and Ernie both died from the foundry, whatever. And Bill Nebaker, who grew up with them and was best friends with Ernie, wore a mask, and they laughed at him. And he kind of said later, do you think they're laughing now? So this was a great group of people. The Denny boys are here, and Norby Wiedepol, who's been our county treasurer, maybe. And Pee Wee Heatwall, he was a preacher in Skull Valley for years. Rio Zero, who used to write for the newspaper. You know, I never knew what Rio's real job was. All he did was sports and the 1967, they didn't know what to do. The city was clever enough to sell all our snow removal equipment to Flagstaff. And I don't know if you guys have had Bruce Fee tell the story, but he has a slideshow of the big snow. He basically single-handed kept Yavapai County going. He had the only snow machine in all of Yavapai County, and he was out there taking bales of hay to the ranchers' cows. He kept, the APS trucks would go, you know, those big monster trucks, they'd get stuck in the snow. He'd have to take them on to get the lines done. He took the gas people out to get their lines done. It is a marvelous show if you haven't seen it before. It was a heck of a snowstorm. My sister was to be married that week after Christmas. And my dad was sitting with his feet up, as he did, looking out his window at downtown on the Montezuma Street property. And the place that's a parking lot next to the Raven now, well, it was Ken Golding Tire Company, and the guy was up on top of a flat roof shoveling the snow, and my dad watched it cave in, kind of explode, and the guy was lost, and he called my mom and said, I'll be right home. And they left Prescott, and we moved the wedding in 3 days to Phoenix. People couldn't have come anyway. They would have had to walk to get to the... 5 feet of snow. 5 feet of snow. It was immovable for like almost 2 weeks. It was a long... Restaurants didn't have food. Grocery stores couldn't get their shipments. It was a pretty amazing situation. Okay, I am one of the goons over there on Washington School. I was teaching first grade, and we're hanging on the fence. The Bashford house moved up of the property that's now Jack in the Box corner at Pleasant Street and Gurley. And in 1974, they were moving this house down the street, and we were all out there watching it. This is a Bernie Fisher best. Bernie moved every house that moved in Prescott, including the Willow Creek Inn when it went out there. This is passing the courthouse. This is passing, see the APS guys up here raising the wires so they can go under it? Isn't that amazing? I have lost track of time. 1974. Oh, you guys, I'm running over. And now it's the Bashford house. Beautiful Bashford house. And then the world's oldest rodeo. I love this picture because these are the Carter girls. And Lorraine Carter married Doc Fletcher way back when she and their family, the Carters, had a ranch and still do in Walnut Grove, which is down on the way to Yornell, Peoples Valley, in that area. And so, let's see, Lorraine is here. She was rodeo queen. Sherry Shepherd, or Stella Shepherd, was her daughter. Let me think. Her niece. Linda Shepherd was her niece. Where's Linda? This is her daughter, April. And then this is the granddaughters in this generation. So this is Prescott rodeo queens all coming out of the Carter family. I love it. And then Stella's dad was Chuck Shepherd, who was a world champion roper. One of the 3 world champions we had in Prescott, Arizona. This is one of the world champions, J.C. Trujillo. He was a year ahead of me in Helen Marie's class and bareback champion of the world. He got to rodeo for Gerald Ford at the White House. I mean, he had a wonderful life. Now we're fortunate enough to have him back. He's the general manager of the rodeo, and it's grown. They sell all the tickets. They use the rodeo grounds more, and he's great. A guy said one time, JC came back in '81 after the championship, and he was riding one of these horrifying horses down in front of, all the way along the fence, and he throws his hat to the crowd, and the announcer said, "I'd like to be his campaign manager when he runs for mayor of Prescott, Arizona." This is Cam Smith, and I love this picture because back here are JC's parents. We lost both of them just this year. Albert was just turning 100, and Albert rodeoed in Prescott in 1935, and both of his boys have followed suit. This picture I love because this is my grandfather, Bumps Crawford, and he played on the first Prescott High School football team in 1910, and his great, I don't know if it's two greats or three, Clayton played in 2010, so our family spanned that 100-year period of football. My dad played, his son, my dad played. Isn't that great? And his grandpa played. This is my family, my son Toby, my daughter Reagan, Toby's wife Cam, Reagan's husband Eric, who just got a basketball team at Embry-Riddle. And then this is generation 5 of my family in Prescott. These two are both in business in my building, and she lives there. They live there. And then this is generation 6. Toby has this precious little Wilson, and Reagan has Cree and Coley, who are at Lincoln School. Whew. So I hope you feel a little more in touch with Prescott and Prescott's past. Does anybody have any comments or questions or? Yes. Oh, no? Okay. Good. Good to see you.
If you've lived here a long time, brought back memories. And I was talking to her before her program about all the common friends we have. I've only lived here 7 years, but my mother-in-law knew her parents and etc. And it's an amazing web of people and names that's fantastic. So I hope you enjoyed it, and I want to give Judy what we give our speakers. A lot of our docents are artists, and so we have note cards that are created by many of our artist docents as a gift. So thank you for being here. Please take a handout or a business card if you want more information about the docents, or call me. Thank you so much.
That.